Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp, working towards the weekend. Got Jordan Kitchens and Kathy Spazzelli back there on the ones and twos and fired up you with us to close out that work week. Hopefully it's already in the rearview mirror and you're moving on to the weekend. If not, we'll get you there over the next 2 hours. Plenty to get to. Preston Guy in his normal spot 15 minutes from right now, talking some LSU football. Got a story that's labeled in my notes as "The Saints are average." And that's essentially the entire gist of the story. But there are some numbers and some concerns that are placed in that story, and I'll give some of my thoughts, some of which I agree with, some of which I might push back on a touch. But we'll get to some of that with the Saints. Huge segment coming up in 45 minutes. Jacob Beck, producer of this show, who's not in today, but he was at the soccer game yesterday, and the USA peed down their leg. And Beck will talk about that and what he saw in Atlanta at 1:45. I got some thoughts on Gabe Relaford. LSU announced him as the freak of the week for his performance in the strength and conditioning program. Is he primed for a big freshman season? We'll talk about that. Rashid Shaheed. We're also going to do a little bit of Ask Hunt in the second hour as well. So a lot to do over the next 2 hours. Lock it in and let's roll. ESPN.com had a story out today about the 2025 NFL Draft. Never too early to talk about the 2025 NFL Draft, is it? They had two of their analysts put together a top 5 list at every single position. It was Matt Miller and Jordan Reed, and they went through it. All these guys are draft eligible, and they kind of gave their top 5 at every position. A lot of them were similar, but sometimes there were just some differences in the order. At quarterback, you've got Carson back at the top spot for both. You've got Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers at 2 and 3. Riley Leonard's in there. Jackson Dart's in there. You've also got Connor Wigman in Matt Miller's top 5. And they did that for every single position. And I wanted to look through and kind of see where they had some LSU players. And it was the same cast of characters that you would well imagine they would have. It starts at offensive tackle with LSU in this coming draft. And Miller has Will Campbell as the second best offensive tackle. Reed has him as the third best offensive tackle. Both of them have Kelvin Banks at Texas as the best tackle in this draft. Interestingly enough, Reed had Emory Jones, his second best offensive tackle, ahead of Will Campbell. And I love that. Not because I think very little of Will Campbell. I think a ton of Will Campbell. But I'm thrilled that someone has evaluated this tape, far more qualified to do it than I am, and said, yeah, Campbell's awesome on the left, but this guy on the right, he's every bit as good. And while LSU has absolutely churned out elite-level college running backs that have gone to the NFL, they have churned out defensive backs that have gone to the NFL, they have churned out wide receivers that have gone into the NFL. And in fact, there actually have been some quarterbacks in the last few years that they've sent into the NFL. Offensive line has been a spot where it hasn't been quite as prevalent. Yes, you can find your spots where LSU offensive linemen have gone high in the draft or had brilliant NFL careers. Certainly, Alan Faneca and Kevin Maguire are in the Hall of Fame, and that was back in the 90s. And as you progress forward, you've seen Andrew Whitworth have an incredible career that's going to result in him being a Hall of Famer. Leo Collins has had a great career. Lloyd Cushenberry just signed a huge contract. Joe Barksdale had a great career in the NFL. Trey Turner had a great start to his career in the NFL. Like, you can point to your examples. But offensive line has been a spot that LSU may not have always had elite-level NFL talent. Now, I'll take 5 of the guys you had on the 2011 offensive line, and Will Blackwell was an All-American on that unit and never even attempted to play a snap in the regular season in the NFL. Now, I think he's in medicine. But he was a great college player, just not a top 10 NFL draft pick. And potentially, these two guys could be top 10 NFL draft picks. And that is a phenomenal place to start your offense. And we know that the guards are very, very veteran players as well. in their fourth and fifth years, and you plug a redshirt freshman center in there, and you kind of push off the dock, and we feel great about this. So to encapsulate, these two guys are 2 and 4 in Miller's top 5. They are 2 and 3 in Reed's top 5 draftable tackles in this draft. That is phenomenal for LSU. The next place that I went, and it's actually 2 different positions for one different guy, and that's the conversation that we're going to have basically all of the second half of August, I think. Because when you start with pass rusher, you see an LSU Tiger pop up. And it's Harold Perkins at the 2 spot. Miller's got Harold Perkins as the second best pass rusher in this draft. Reed does not have Harold Perkins in his top 5 pass rushers. We know when Harold Perkins stands on the line of scrimmage and attacks college tackles, really good things tend to happen for LSU. It started really in earnest with that game at Fayetteville his freshman year, even though right before that, Lane Kiffin mentioned him specifically in the massive turnaround in that game against Ole Miss. But all of that early in his freshman season was done off the edge, just creating absolute havoc. And that's why Miller says he's a top 5 edge rusher. Reed doesn't feel that way. But if you just scroll down one more, at linebacker, Reed has Harold Perkins number 1. So it's just a difference of where they see him. Reed says he's a number 1 linebacker. Miller says he's the number 2 pass rusher. This is my opinion. This is Hunt's opinion. I don't think you can label him a pass rusher in the NFL draft. To me, he's got to be a linebacker. In the same way that you wouldn't label Patrick Peterson a kick returner in the NFL draft. Yes, he can do that. It's part of his skill set, but it's not what he needs to spend most of his time doing, right? I've done this segment, and I'll probably do it again in the middle of August, quite frankly. I've gone through the heights and weights of all these elite pass rushers in the NFL. None of them, not one of them, looks like Harold Perkins. I'm not saying Harold Perkins can't rush the passer in the NFL. He can. I know he can. I think Harold Perkins could go out there this fall and rush the passer with a little bit of success in the NFL. He certainly wouldn't be a Pro Bowler, but I think he could adequately acquit himself rushing the passer some in the NFL. But he's too small to play there all the time. He has to back up a level and be comfortable playing there. And he actually made strides doing that last year. I know we all want to take Matt House and just run him out of town as fast as possible, but I don't know that Harold Perkins didn't progress last year. You could say he was misused, and that's perfectly fine. And the most important thing to you as an LSU fan is that he's used properly at LSU. And that's perfectly acceptable, and I don't think you're wrong in that. But I am going to look at this entire picture and go, he does have to do some of these things out in the slot and in the middle of the field off the ball in the NFL. He's too small to line up like Julius Peppers or Cam Jordan and play on the edge. He can't do that. He's too small. He's got to learn to play linebacker. And that's why I'm encouraged that Reed has him as the number 1 linebacker in this crew. They also have as part of this story the toughest player to rank, and Reed called it Harold Perkins. He said he's an off-ball linebacker or an edge rusher. I don't know. That'll be the question. I have him 6'1", 215, graded as an off-ball linebacker, and see him transitioning best as a weak side player. He bounced back and forth between multiple positions in 2023, but he was still productive with a team-high 13 tackles for loss to go along with 5 sacks. He's expected to play middle linebacker in 2024. Middle linebacker, okay. We're in the era of the spread. Middle linebackers don't exactly all look like Dick Butkus at this point. Greg Penn's going to play in the middle most of the time. Harold Perkins will be on the inside, but he's also going to play out on the edge as well. He's a hybrid player, and it's just something we're going to have to get used to here in his junior season if we're not used to it already. I just hope that he's used a little more properly, a little more advantageously this year with the understanding that he does have to play both places. To this point in the segment, you're not surprised by anything. You know that Will Campbell's awesome. You know that Emory Jones is awesome. You know that Harold Perkins is awesome. And those 3 guys who all came in together are all going to be stud players this year who will be high draft picks. The one name that I didn't know that I would see on this list, but that I did, and it comes in the player outside of the top 5 to watch, was fascinating. Because in all these positions, quarterback all the way through, they ranked their top 5. And then they did the toughest guy to rank and the guy outside the top 5, which means he's not necessarily right at the top of the list, but give him a look. It's Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. It says, following in the footsteps of Jaden Daniels won't be easy. Nussmeier saw action in only 6 games last season, and with his lone start coming in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Wisconsin. Nussmeier showed immense potential in that game, completing 31 of 45 for 395 and 3 touchdowns to just 1 interception. We don't know what this year is going to hold for Garrett Nussmeier, and he doesn't look like the prototypical NFL quarterback as of 10 years ago. Not quite that size. But the NFL is transitioning. They're accepting different quarterbacks that move around a little bit and may not be 6'6" with a rocket arm. They don't all have to look exactly like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. They don't all have to look like Ben Roethlisberger or John Elway. In fact, you look around the NFL and a lot of them don't look like that. But he's got a chance to progress and to become a very draftable player. And if he does that, that means LSU's been great on offense this year. And that's awesome. And if he doesn't, it means he's back next year. Now, Garrett Nussmeier doesn't strike me as a guy whose camp's going to be all over him to go get the money. Doesn't strike me as a guy who's in a rush. In fact, quite the opposite. He's waited his turn. He's not in a rush. His dad's made a great living in football. So it's a win-win if you're sitting here evaluating LSU's quarterback situation from this year to next year. Either Garrett Nussmeier is a star and goes in the NFL draft and becomes another in the line of Burrow to Daniels to Nussmeier. I'm not talking about Heisman trophies, but draftable quarterbacks. Not every team has that all the time. And then you turn to the next guy, whether it's Bryce Underwood or one of the guys you've got on campus or someone in the transfer portal. And if it's not perfect, well, you feel like he's got all the ability in the world, and him to come back for a 5th year to let Bryce Underwood season for a year watching, that's not the worst thing in the world either. I haven't given a lot of thought to Garrett Nussmeier going to the NFL draft next year as we sit here in the summer of 2024. It's certainly possible, but I haven't given that a lot of thought. But as I do give it thought, I go, if he does, that means really good things happened. So it's kind of a win-win if you're sitting here and you're an LSU fan. So you can check that entire story up on ESPN.com, top 5 draftable players at every single position. Incidentally, no other LSU players showed up on the list, but 2 offensive tackles, a guy that can rush the passer, and your quarterback. Pretty good place to start with some really good talent on your roster if you're LSU football. Speaking of LSU football, we'll talk about some of it with Preston Guy coming up next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Visit LeBare's Baton Rouge Casino this summer for exciting live sports action. We've got the biggest screens around, and ESPN Bet is live in Louisiana. Plus, Pin Play Rewards members can win up to $500 in pin cash every single week. So visit pinplaysports.com/cover5 today and register for your chance to play and win. If you're not a member, get the Pin Play app today. LeBare's Baton Rouge Casino is your live sports headquarters. Bring your crew for all the action. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 877-770-STOP.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Value Ford has $10,000 off F-150. $10,000 off the new 2024 Ford F-150. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product is always customer.
Charles Hannegriff join us for the Monday edition of Live at Lunch. We're at the Queen Casino in downtown Baton Rouge. Live at Lunch, wrapping up the weekend and getting you ready for the 4th of July holiday. Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Chugging right along, Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Always our pleasure to talk with Preston Guy of TigerBait.com. He joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, how you doing?
Hey, Hunt, how's it going? Are you pulling another 6-hour radio day?
No.
Or did Matt just need one day off?
He needed a couple days off. He asked me if I could help on Thursday and Friday. I said I can make Thursday work. I just don't really want to be here at 6 o'clock on a Friday. That's just not what I'm going to go straight to the pool with the kiddo. There's probably going to be a margarita involved. I'm just not doing radio until 6 o'clock today. So Taylor Sharp's going to jump in. As fun as yesterday was doing 5 hours straight in the middle of summer, today's just not in the cards.
Well, how noble of you to offer to step up until alcohol's involved.
That's how it goes. I just did an opening segment and talked about Garrett Nussmeier's draftability in next year's draft.
Yeah.
Have you given that any thought?
Oh, yeah. I don't think he's back next year.
Okay.
I think that he's poised to have a 4,000-yard season. I expect every bit of progress we've seen from the spring game and all that good stuff. I expect he'll be a top 3-round pick. And the majority of guys who are picked in the first, guys who can be a top 3-round pick, they tend to go. We're talking about a guy who's going to be 4 years out, so he'll have his degree and all that good stuff. The one X factor in this, his dad is Doug Nussmeier, who I actually had the pleasure to watch a practice with during spring ball. Very nice guy. But Doug has a history of pushing guys to redshirt and stay there for a 5th year. In fact, if you remember, Nussmeier sat out the bowl game where, Brad Davis was the interim coach against Kansas State, and they did not have a quarterback, so Jontre Kirkland had to go out there and start the game because that red shirt was so important. Well, if he leaves with a year left, right, that whole sitting out kind of was for nothing. So that's the one X factors. I do know Doug Nussmeier is a fan of the 5-year college model. They like the Peyton Manning approach to this kind of stuff. So we don't know, but I'll tell you what, if he looks anywhere as good as he's been looking in practice and in the spring game and in the bowl game, we're talking about a lot of money he'd be passing up.
I had a lot of people. I say a lot. I would guess probably 4 to 5 people that I communicated with, either in discussion or via text or whatever, that were just mortified that Garrett Nussmeier would sit out of the Texas Bowl when his team needs him to play quarterback. And I was going, guys, you realize this is the Texas Bowl and LSU's got like 40 guys left, and this is a year of his life that he's trying to keep, as opposed to playing for 3 hours. And now we look back, and that just seems, in my opinion, to see like such a silly conversation. It was so obvious at the time. It's still obvious to me now that like those bowl games, they're not worth a year, and that was the right thing to do for Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, it's since the emergence of the college football playoff, man, people just do not care about the bowl games. That, in addition to, the window for the early signing day and transfer portal window, coaches are bailing on their team so they can move on to the next, which is partially what we saw there. Because they wanted to get Ed Ogeron out early so they could bring a new guy in. Brian Kelly had obviously gotten hired for that game, but he wasn't coaching. It's just these bowl games. I feel like I used to be excited about the Gator Bowl and all that good stuff, right? Like, these things used to mean something. You would want to register that win and bring a bowl win home. They mean nothing. They absolutely mean nothing. When you've got 5 and 7 teams going to a bowl game, and the 5 and 7 team that wins the bowl game has the same result as the team that loses the SEC championship in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. I mean, it is a bit of an insult at that point. It really doesn't mean anything.
The other part of that segment we did was talking about the draftability of Will Campbell and Emory Jones. One of the ESPN guys actually had Emory Jones ranked ahead of Will Campbell, which I thought was fascinating and almost encouraging because I know how good Will Campbell is. The other piece was Harold Perkins, and he was labeled as a linebacker by one and a pass rusher by the other. This is a conversation we'll have all up and down August, I know, but we'll toss it to you here just briefly. Like, what do you do with Harold Perkins as a college junior?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's too darn talented just to say put your hand in the dirt and go after the passer on third down. I don't think that's what you recruited him for. I don't think there's any coach out there who just sees him as a pass rush specialist. I think he is a complete football player. I think that the system last year just was not working for a number of reasons. One of the big reasons is how undisciplined the defensive line was playing, and they couldn't get blockers tied up. And that, how all these positions are connected. Linebackers feed off of what the defensive tackles do and all that good stuff. So I think there was just a big systemic issue for Harold Perkins last year. He's 6'2", 205? I'm going off the top of my head.
215 is what he's listed.
How many pass rushing edge rushers do you see in the NFL that are that small?
That was my exact segment I just did 10 minutes ago. 0.
Okay, so why I don't really see that working out. I'm not saying he can't be used in blitz packages or play outside linebacker in like a 4-3 system or 3-3-5 stack or something like that. He's just not. Yes, he did really well as a freshman getting after the passer. He's not an outside edge rusher. He's just not. He is a linebacker.
Recruiting is in a dead period right now. It's been just going crazy for the last few weeks. Is there a takeaway that you've had either positively or negatively over the last 7, 15 days?
Well, lots of positive. They've got 3 of the number 1 position players committed in the country. That's per on 3. So that's always a good thing. This class certainly does have a chance to be one of the better in school history. I mean, anytime you talk about number 1 running back, number 1 quarterback in the country, you're already in some historic territory. But there's a lot of other really talented players that are taking LSU very seriously. I mean, even a week ago, you had Anquan Fagans on campus, who's a top 100 safety, and guys committed to Ohio State was taking you very seriously. But then he committed to Ohio State, but maybe you're back in the picture for him. DeCorian Moore is a guy I think about. Maybe LSU's back in the picture for him. All these receivers are talented. Yeah, this is a special class. I think guys are kind of take it slow now, and I think come August we're going to see this class really start to take shape. Jabari Antoine, losing him, that's a big blow. I was hearing there's a communication mishap of some sort with him where he's kind of wasn't feeling the love quite as well as he should have, and it wasn't that LSU wasn't recruiting him heavily. It was just a miscommunication of some sort going down. I can't really elaborate beyond that, but it'd be nice if you could get him back on board. We're talking about a top 100 player in New Orleans, where Corey Raymond is from. That's not a guy you should be missing out on. He needs to be on your campus. So hopefully they can get him back on the fold, because outside of that, it was a lot of positives. But you lose him, and that's a big ugly mark on your resume.
Now to the important stuff. EA Sports says LSU's got the 18th best defense in the country. You buying that?
Hunt, first off, if you want to talk about this video game, we can stay the whole show and talk about it. Second off, 18th. Hunt, if LSU had the 18th rated defense last year, you realize we're sitting here
close to the 18th best in the SEC is basically what it looked like to me.
Yeah, right. Like Jaden Daniels is hanging a national championship ring around his Heisman Trophy right now. If LSU had the 18th best defense, that's frustrating. That's a lot of faith in new coaches coming in. Basically, they're saying, because it's mostly the same players from last year's defense. Obviously, there's some changes. Do I think Jordan Gilbert, adding him as your new free safety, is the difference of the defense? I mean, no, he's a guy who helps your defense, but I mean, it's mostly the same roster. Basically, EA is sitting here saying we call BS that these weren't good players last year. They were just poorly coached. And of course, the rating is just a combination. All it is an average of what your starting lineup is rated out there. So 18th, boy, that would be a dramatic improvement. If LSU's got the 18th rated defense next year, you're feeling really good about this team and Blake Baker's future.
I would like that a lot. We'll just have to see. We're off next Friday for the 4th of July holiday, so we'll catch up in a couple of weeks, and we'll be knocking on the door of SEC Media Days. Sound good?
Sounds good, Hunt. See you then.
Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. He and Mike Scarborough do great work over there. He's with us every single Friday. Our Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Looking for a late lunch, looking for dinner this evening. Want to go feed the office next week for 4th of July celebration. Corks can always do your catering orders, birthday parties as well. Happy to do it. They're on Government between Foster and Jefferson. Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. Fantastic jumbo Gulf shrimp, clean, crispy fried catfish, the shoestring fries, honey butter rolls. The hush puppies are fantastic. Crawfish étouffée over the baked potatoes with the jumbo shrimp. It's just awesome stuff over there at Corks, and we appreciate them bringing you our Friday shows each and every week. When we come back, we'll talk about the Saints. It doesn't sound super encouraging, but maybe I'll disagree with it a little bit. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Pain's part of life, whether you're an active youth athlete, whether you're an older person who's just got some aches and pains that need to be dealt with. Evolve Physical Therapy can help you with all of that, and Robbie Bolton has been running the show over there. He's been a physical therapist almost 2 decades. Trust the same guy that Kevin Gaussman trusts with his body. Trust the same guy Austin Nola trusts with his body. These are professional athletes. Robbie Bolton can help you as well, whether it's a youth athlete, 9-year-old gymnast that got hurt, or whether you're a 60-year-old that's just trying to get back on the golf course every single weekend. Robbie Bolton can help you with that. He's not just going to give you some exercises and say, hey, head on home and tell me how you feel next week. He's going to be hands-on for the entirety of your appointment, whether it's the cupping, the dry needling, isokinetic testing, what they can do. Robbie says, once I see you, I will see you forever. I'm especially talking to you if you have been through physical therapy and did not have a good experience. You don't have to go back. You can choose your physical therapist. Go to Evolve Physical Therapy with Robbie Bolton. Check them out online, evolvept.com, or stop by. They're on Starring near Highland Road. It's Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports online at evolvept.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $20,000 off new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $20,000 off the powerful Ram truck. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Bayou Ford has $10,000 off F-150. $10,000 off the new 2024 Ford F-150. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR. Round 1 of the NBA draft in the books. We'll talk about how the Pelicans fared, preview the rest of the draft, and the latest in college baseball's transfer portal. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
We're going to catch up with old Jacob Beck here in about 10, 12 minutes. He was in Atlanta yesterday for the U.S. men's national team's loss. I think it was to Panama. Either way, it was not good, and Beck was there. He's gonna talk to us in about 10 or 12 minutes here about all of that. Frank Schwab of Yahoo is doing power rankings of the NFL franchises as of right now, and he's doing one a day. And I continue to click on it day by day to kind of see when the black and gold show up. Today they did, and unfortunately it's pretty early. That's number 24 in his power rankings entering this season. His lead in the story, and you can read the whole thing over at Yahoo, says, "You might have forgotten the New Orleans Saints finished last season with a winning record. They were 9-8. And then he said, it would have been more fitting if they had found a way to finish 8-1, because since the end of the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era, the Saints have settled into boring mediocrity with no end in sight." That's the opening 2 lines of his story. And he backs it up with a lot of numbers here. The Saints are 25-26 in the past 3 years. They've got a quarterback who's 33 years old and has a $150 million contract. The top 2 highest paid players for most of this offseason in terms of their cap hits were Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill. That was before Taysom Hill restructured. And as he writes, Kamara's best days seem to be behind him, and he plays a devalued position. And Hill will be 34 years old and is the pet product of an old coach who hasn't been on the sideline since 2021. This is some blunt stuff that Schwab is putting out there. He continues to go into their salary cap situation. The Saints are an astonishing $100.5 million over the projected cap in 2025, and that's without much hope of being a Super Bowl contender at all. And I don't disagree with either of those things. One is objective and one is subjective, and I can't argue with much of that. There's a metric that he cites called defensive value over average, DVOA. I don't know how it's calculated, and I don't really care, but they do have an objective metric to it, and this is what it says the Saints are from last year. 15th in the league, 17th on offense, 15th on defense, 14th on special teams. That's the definition of just absolute average. They're just average all the way across the board. He continues, they won one game against a 2023 playoff game. It was late in the season against the Tampa Bay Bucks, who also finished 9-8. And they did not lose to any team that had 10 or more losses. So it's not like they stink. No one's suggesting the Saints are awful. But you would be fooling yourself if you suggested they were really good. And then you have to discern, like, okay, well, if they're not awful and they're not really good, like, can they get really good? And you look at this and you go, well, I don't know how they would do that because of the financial situation and the age of their players. Now, they start talking about quarterbacks, and they say Carr wasn't awful last season. In true Saints fashion, he finished 19th out of 38 qualified quarterbacks, which is, again,
right there in the middle.
Right in the middle of it's everything they do on Pro Football Focus. And then he grades their offseason, and he said free agency was light because the Saints had to scramble to get under the cap. They were more than $80 million over, and so they had to restructure deals. They signed Chase Young to a one-year deal. They signed Willie Gay to a one-year deal. Then they went to the draft, and he says it was, quote, fine with taking Taliesin Fuanga and Kool-Aid McKinstry in the first two drafts. He says the Fuanga pick was necessary because the Saints might have whiffed on Trevor Penning, and stalwart Ryan Ramchick's future is murky. So they probably needed a great offseason, but it's hard to see how they did enough with the additions to make a big difference, and he grades it as a D+. What you got?
I think he was pretty accurate, man. I mean, not one thing you said I disagree with. Everything you said, everything he broke down was so spot on. I mean, you're expecting a Derek Carr and a Dennis Allen team to be above average?
They're just right on the baseline.
Right
he
on the
continues, and this is not him talking, this is BetMGM with their breakdown. So the Saints don't have a single player who appears in the top 25 in the odds for most valuable player of the league, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, or offensive rookie of the year.
Okay, that's mean.
And now, rookie of the year, they're not. Taliesin Fuanga is not going to be rookie of the year on offense. He's a tackle, so you're not going to get that. But the other one's like, you don't. Who are the stars? Demario Davis is great. He's 35.
The stars in the Saints roster right now.
Chris
have
Olave.
to be like Chris Olave, and I want to call Tyrann Mathieu a star. I'm like, most cachet.
He's 33.
Yeah, I'm about to say, like, there's no, young guy other than Olave. Shaheed has star potential breakout, maybe, per se. But no.
I mean, he says arguably the Saints' most important defenders on each level are Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Tyrann Mathieu. They will be 35, 35, and 32 this season.
Goodness.
And he says Marshawn Lattimore is still a good corner in the prime age of 28, but there are a lot of questions about his future. And so every time you can say something positive, you turn around and have to add the caveat, but. And that's what keeps you right there in the middle. And that's exactly where the Saints are. So the point of this segment here, and Jordan, I want your help with this,
yes.
And I'll toss it into you. Like, when you weigh the current state of the roster, and I'm talking about every team in the NFL, including the Saints, and that's where we start.
Okay.
You weigh the current roster, and then you just weigh the hope factor. If somebody's young or something's new and something's different, like, what situation in the league would you definitely say is worse than the Saints? Because, like, yeah, there are some teams last year that stunk, like the Bears, but they have a brand new quarterback. And they had cap room, and they've got some guys in that are stars. Like, so yeah, I think the Saints might be better than the Bears, but like, there's more hope there, so it feels better. I don't have to talk about teams like the Eagles or the Chiefs, or like that just have the roster, the 49ers that's like ready to go.
Yeah.
And so I brought it, like, would you feel better as a Saints fan or a Panthers fan right now?
Oh my goodness.
I would feel better as a Saints fan.
I'd probably say the Saints. I wouldn't even go on that. I was going to be like the Giants.
Well, I'm starting at the bottom.
Okay, yeah,
I'm starting
yeah.
I think the Panthers are a dysfunctional mess, and Bryce Young looks so
owner alone. Yes.
Right, the Saints feel better than the Panthers. Cardinals is next.
I feel better about the Cardinals.
You do?
Well, with Kyler and Marvin, that could be something.
Okay.
That could be something. I don't know much about their defense or whatnot, but I like that little piece.
It's a tough division.
Yeah, division is hard.
You've got, obviously, San Francisco's really good, and whatever Seattle is, I'm not exactly sure what Seattle is. But so the Giants, you feel better about the Saints situation than the Giants?
Saints.
Daniel Jones still there. Like, it's like they got Drew Lock as their backup. Like
Darren Waller retiring.
Yeah, Saquon's gone. Like that's a tough spot. The Raiders.
Ooh. They don't have a quarterback. Maybe the Saints.
I feel probably better about the Saints, but at that point, it starts to get difficult.
Yeah.
There are a lot of rosters I could point to. Washington's one of them, that are worse than the Saints.
I feel better about them though. Jaden Daniels,
because they have the hope factor there. Like, where's the hope factor coming from for Saints? It's like Clint Kubiak. That's your hope.
That's our hope. Yes, and Fuaga, we're a rookie tackle. That's our hope.
I mean, that's the point of this thing. Like, would you rather be competitive with a bad division and a chance to sneak in the playoffs if Baker Mayfield tears his ACL in October and you win the division at 9-8? Or would you rather, we went 3-14 last year, but we got a new quarterback and a new coach? Like that, the hope factor is so low on this, and it's very subjective. There may be plenty of Saints fans that sit out there and go, no, we got Kubiak, and look, we still got Olave and Shaheed, and we're going to revamp this offensive line, and Carr's going to stay healthy, and our defense, we got Dennis Allen, like he's a good defensive coach, and the defense was okay last year, and like maybe there are some people that feel that way. I just, sitting back and looking at him like, I don't think so.
And I think that's the problem, that we have Saints fans like that. The blind optimism and fanhood literally blows my mind. There's no way that y'all can we got Derek Carr and then dude, we've had 3 to 4 years of this, man. Well, what is going to get better? Do y'all really expect Dennis Allen, a career losing head coach, to just magically flip the switch and become Chuck Noll or something? Come on, man. I'm not doing that.
What about New England? New coach, Drake May is their backup to Jacoby Brissett. Who's in a better spot?
All right. Man, I would have to say the Saints, but they have a lot more hope. And that's a winning franchise.
And they have so much stocked in there. Like even the 9-year-old Patriots fan has some positive memories from a few years ago.
The Celtics just won. I ain't worried about them. Y'all win all the time.
So it's 24 is low to me, and that's where he's got them in these power rankings. I think it's probably closer to 20, but I can't get you any inside the top 15 at this point. I think the Saints. This is the way I'll put it in June. Maybe I change my tune when we start talking about a few things in August, but I think the Saints have a pretty good chance to win when they show up on that particular Sunday. But then over the course of 17 Sundays, I think the law of averages starts to pick away at you, and that you don't have Derek Carr is very capable of going out there and playing a great game. I don't know if Bryce Young's even capable of going out there and playing a great game.
Everything's bad over in Panthers.
It's real bad. It's just, I think the trajectory of this organization and the feeling in Saints fans would be different if they weren't in the NFC South. If you put this team in the AFC North with the Steelers and the Browns and the Bengals and the Ravens, and then you got to play those teams 6 times in a year as opposed to Atlanta and Carolina, and then all of a sudden you look up and be like, oh, this isn't really close to the top of the league. But because last year the schedule was so light, it just all of a sudden kind of fell in your lap and you were able to get to 9 wins. I feel bad being pessimistic in June about the Saints.
No.
But I'm reading the stats he's giving me right here.
You're being real.
It is what it is. It's not super.
Before we go, you know what slipped my mind? We do have a little hope. Spencer Rattler. That is our hope. I don't know how that slipped through the cracks.
I'm not going to slam the door on that. I hope it's awesome. It's a long shot, but I hope it's fantastic. We'll step aside, take a timeout. Jacob Beck coming to us from somewhere in the Eastern time zone coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Make you feel more optimistic than the Saints, the peace of mind that comes with a Generac home standby generator. And you can get that from my friends at Boudreaux's Electric. Neil and Melissa have been running Boudreaux's Electric for 40 years. I can promise you this, when you work with Boudreaux's Electric, when you get that generator put in your home, you're going to get a full-time Boudreaux's Electric employee that's going to come out and do that work for you. It's not going to be somebody that's contracted, hey, go handle this generator for us. No, full-time employee. When they install that generator, they're going to use the best quality in copper and wiring and tubing, and they're going to do most of that installation underground so that it's aesthetically pleasing. We take a lot of pride in our homes and the way that they look. You don't want a big honking generator right there just taking away from the beauty of your home and your lawn and your landscaping. Boudreaux's Electrical knows that, so they're going to take care of you in that respect. And then when that generator is installed, they're going to monitor it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that for some reason, if there is a mechanical failure, Boudreaux's Electrical will know about it. They'll come out and repair that so that when you need your generator to come on, it will come on. It is storm season. There is activity in the Atlantic. Don't wait until that storm comes through to get that generator put in your home. Let Boudreaux's Electrical take care of it right now so that you have the peace of mind entering storm season to know that you're not going to lose power. They're online at boudreauxelectrical.com. The phone number is 985-397-1562, 985-397-1562, and online at boudreauxelectrical.com.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. So it's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction.
Charles Hannegriff, join us for the Monday edition of Live at Lunch. We're at the Queen Casino in downtown Baton Rouge. Live at Lunch, wrapping up the weekend and getting you ready for the 4th of July holiday. Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Well, U.S. men's national team took to the pitch in Atlanta yesterday. Thousands in attendance, cheering them on, vuvuzelas in hand. Jacob Beck was one of them. He's not here at work today, but he did phone in. Stars and Stripes lose to Panama 2-1. Beck, what do you have to say for yourself? You couldn't pull the boys through?
No, I couldn't, man. There was 60,000 in attendance, which I think is probably better than the Falcons usually do.
Definitely.
So it was actually a pretty good crowd. But unfortunately, the U.S. got a red card in the 18th minute.
Why are we slapping people?
Yeah, we're slapping people on the back of the head. The Panamanians know they can't beat the U.S. on a fair game, so
they're going to come out and entice the guys, try to get in their heads, and that's exactly what happened. And unfortunately, Timothy Weah, one of our better players, he got the better of him and got a red card in the 18th minute. And from there on out, it was pretty much just a hopeful game of hoping that Panama wouldn't score, and they did.
So the Panamanians are like a bunch of Pat Bevs running around, and we can't keep our cool. Is that the issue?
That's literally a perfect encapsulation of Panama, because they don't really have a whole lot of skillful players. They've got some decent guys, but for the most part, they understand that the best chance they have of beating the U.S. is by trying to get in their heads. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, there were a bunch of Pat Devs running around just trying to get in our heads, and that was what happened.
Describe the energy in the crowd when the United States of America is losing in a sport to Panama.
It's pretty quiet. Whenever Panama scored the second goal to go up 2-1, it was pretty much just dead silence. There was probably like maybe a couple hundred Panamanian fans in there, and so they were making a little bit of noise. But other than that, it was pretty much just shock and very big disappointment for all the fans that were there. So it was quite a terrible experience. And the U.S. actually had a few chances in the second half to score, and but other than that, once they hit halftime, they pretty much just they brought a defender in for an attacker, and we're just trying to hunker down and defend the 1-1 draw, and that didn't happen.
So I have a couple questions. One, did they have the Falcons concession prices? That's really important, because the Falcons charge like $3 for a beer. Did you at least get that out of it?
No, I did not. I paid $10 for a Modelo, so it was a tough scene. It was a tough scene for all involved. My brother got a grilled cheese for $8, which wasn't too bad.
Cheese and bread for $8? Come on.
Yeah. Well, it had some brisket on it, so it was okay. But the beers were expensive. The food was a little bit expensive too, and it was just a tough scene all around.
There L's aplenty for the Bet crew and the Stars and Stripes. Okay, big picture here. Like, why do we stink? Why can't we beat these teams? I get if we can't beat Argentina, but why can't we beat Panama?
Well, we can beat Panama, Hunt. The problem is when you get a red card in the 18th minute, you then have to play one man down. It's not equivalent, but just imagine playing basketball 5v4. I mean, you have very little chance. You've just got to pack guys in the paint and just hope that guys don't make shots. It's kind of like that in soccer. You have to pack into your defensive third and just hope that they don't make a really good pass and score a goal. And unfortunately, that's what happened. So the U.S. were playing well until that point, but once you're down a man, it doesn't really matter how good you are. If the other team is competent, they should score goals and they should beat you. So I don't really feel like the U.S. lost this game on fair ground. Obviously, they were down a man. So that's just how soccer is. If you go down a man with that much time left, it's almost impossible to not let them score.
I think we're United States, they're Panama. If we played Panama in basketball 5-on-4, we'd crush them.
Well, you're right. That's a good point, actually. But yeah, it's a tough scene, man. So now U.S. are going to play Uruguay on Monday, and they almost certainly have to win to make it out of the group. So that's going to be a really tall task. Uruguay is one of the best teams in the tournament. So
all right,
it's not looking up.
We know I break these games down with the best of them, and I talk about the touches having to be very important. I got to add to my keys of the game: don't smack somebody in the head 20 minutes into the game. We'll put that on the whiteboard before the Uruguay game.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I don't think Uruguay are going to try to do that to the U.S. because they have a lot of really good players.
Okay.
So I don't think they're going to try to get in the head of the U.S. players, but they might. But just watching the Panama game, they may say, hey, maybe we should try this and it'll work again for us. So I don't know. But yeah, the U.S. Just gotta have some cooler heads. Cooler heads need to prevail. Unfortunately, they did not.
Hopefully you can find a beer that's not $10 today. Enjoy your week off.
All right, thanks, man.
Jacob Beck, producer of the Hunt Palmer Show, was in attendance at Mercedes-Benz yesterday. $10 Modelo's, $8 brisket grilled cheeses, and USA losing to Panama in soccer. I want to be serious. Like I don't want the United States to lose these games. I'm not going to watch. I don't pull against them, even though I kind of give Beck and Hester a bit of a hard time. I would like the United States to be good at soccer. I'm not fully understanding why we suck so bad. I don't understand why we can't beat these tiny little countries. I realize that the best athletes that we have aren't on the soccer field. We have enough great athletes, and we should have enough technology and coaching and infrastructure to beat Panama in soccer. And this is coming from someone who doesn't know anything about soccer. But as I've been told, we're automatically in the next World Cup because we're hosting it. So I guess none of these games really matter, even though this is not World Cup qualifying. It's like we're in the biggest tournament anyway, so whatever. Hope we can win the Copa America. I think they're going to Arrowhead Stadium for the next game here coming up, whenever that is, against Uruguay, who I'm also told is good. We should never lose to Uruguay in anything ever, as far as I'm concerned. I don't even know where Uruguay is. I have a general idea, but I couldn't point to it on a map. Probably a me issue. We'll pause for Sports Center. When we come back, we'll wrap up. No, we won't wrap up. We'll start the second hour of a Friday show and finish off the week in style. We got plenty to get to in the second hour. Gabe Relaford had a really good workout over the week, was the Freak of the Week for LSU. Rashid Shaheed, potential breakout candidate. We'll do some Ask Hunt. So lots and lots to get to on this Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Check them out online, corksfishandshrimp.com. We'll pause for Sports Center. Come back with hour number 2. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $20,000 off new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $20,000 off the powerful Ram truck. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
This is Sports Center.
I'm Doug Brown. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reports the Warriors and Chris Paul will take until Sunday to explore possible trades. The original deadline was today to guarantee the $30 million on Paul's contract for next season. Woj also reports the Mavericks get guard Quentin Grimes in a trade with the Pistons. Detroit gets guard Tim Hardaway Jr. and 3 second-round picks. Now that the Lakers have drafted LeBron James's son, Bronny, what happens next? ESPN's Jay Williams.
A lot of this league is about fit, and a lot of this is also around the opportunity around Bronny for what it does to LeBron. Now that we drafted your son, LeBron, where are you going? Are you going to give us a family discount? How do we move this ball forward?
Jay Williams on Get Up. LeBron James has until 5 Eastern today to opt into his contract for next season. Today, it's the first round of the NHL draft. Coverage at 7 Eastern on ESPN. The Sharks hold the first pick, and they're expected to take Hobey Baker winner Macklin Celebrini from Boston University.
As humans, we like having options. One option you might like is speaking with a real person when you call about your credit card. With 24/7 live, U.S.-based customer service from Discover, everyone can talk to a real person anytime, day or night. Limitations apply. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
From Studio...
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge Studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Working towards the weekend and fired up. You are with us. One more hour to go. And we're going to talk some LSU football to start things off here in the second hour. LSU football's official Twitter handle tweeted out its Freak of the Week this week. They're deep in the throes of their strength and conditioning here in the offseason. And this week's Freak of the Week was Gabe Relaford, freshman defensive lineman from up in the 318 Shreveport product, Evangel product. And they say he got up to 20.9 miles per hour on the GPS. That is a big man running quite quickly, if I do say so myself. And it got me to thinking about LSU's defensive line, and we all know that it's a concern. Brian Kelly said out loud it was a concern. They certainly looked in the transfer portal hard to try to find some help there, and they've got what they've got at this point, and you've got to make it work. And a lot of people, when discussing LSU's defensive line, will point to some of these freshmen that LSU has brought in that are immensely talented and say, well, they've got this guy and this guy, that they should be okay. They've got Gabe Relaford. He was a high 4-star player. He can play. They've got Don McKinley. That's a 5-star. He can play. And so I did what I generally do when that kind of thing pops up, and I thought, I've got some thoughts on that, but why don't I go look it up? And as I tell you all the time, when I look statistics up like this, sometimes it tells the exact story that I thought, and sometimes it tells a different story than maybe I remember. And this time, it's a little different than I remember. It did not work out exactly the way that I thought. In my head, when I think about Gabe Relaford and Dominic McKinley being impact players for this particular team, I think, man, 2 spots where I do not want to rely on true freshmen is quarterback and defensive front. Like, you got a freshman running back, yep, get him some carries. I think he can handle it. Maybe pass protection's a bit of an issue. Might not have the best hands because he got a bunch of handoffs in high school. But in terms of just running, let's go. You got a wide receiver, even a corner, pass rusher. Like, okay, those guys as freshmen can go in there and can play. But you talk about playing on the inside of defensive line. You talk about 18, 19-year-olds going against 21, 22-year-old men in there. Like, that's not something you want to rely on. And LSU has not relied on true freshman defensive linemen, specifically tackles, very much over the years. And certainly I was not going to go back over every single freshman defensive lineman and all of their statistics for the last 10 years. Like, that's a little bit more than needs to be done. But what I thought is, okay, I'll go to the recruiting page and I'll find, going back through every class for about 10 years, some really productive LSU players and some really highly thought of recruits. Some of those line up in there both. Some of them are either or. You got some 5 stars that weren't quite what you thought. You got some 4 stars that became better than you thought. You got some 3 stars as well that became better than you thought. So I'll just take the really productive players, and you'll see. I'll go through the names. You'll get it. And some of the highly thought of recruits. What did they do as freshmen? And keep in mind, with running backs, like, the statistics pretty much do tell the story. How many yards did you run for? How many catches did you make? How many touchdowns did you score? That's kind of how you would measure a running back. With defensive linemen, statistics don't tell the whole story. I know that. You don't know. You know that. Just because you don't have a bunch of tackles doesn't mean you weren't disruptive, doesn't mean you didn't command a double team, doesn't mean you didn't hold your line so a linebacker can make a play. There are a lot of things you can do on the interior defensive line that don't necessarily speak to statistics, but that's all I got. I can't go through all the tape for 15 guys in their entire freshman year. So we're going to go off statistics and just kind of paint the picture that way and see just how much LSU can expect from defensive linemen. We start all the way back in 2011. Anthony Johnson was as highly touted a defensive lineman as LSU has ever brought in. He was a top 10 player in the country, top 5 player in the country by some. He was the national sacks leader. He was nicknamed the Freak. Like, in that 2011 class that featured Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham and Jeremy Hill and Kenny Hilliard and Lael Collins and Trey Turner and all those guys, he was the defensive lineman. And that team in 2011 was obviously loaded. Michael Brockers and Benny Logan started on that phenomenal defense. Josh Downs played a good bit. And Anthony Johnson made 12 tackles that year, 3 tackles for loss and a sack and a half. He wasn't asked to do a ton, but he did make a tackle a game, basically. Fast forward a couple of years, Christian Lockature was asked to do a ton because Freak Johnson left and Ego Ferguson was gone. Like, they didn't have enough dudes on the interior, and Christian Lockature had to play a ton. And he made 11 tackles, had a tackle and a half for loss, and a sack. Like, statistically speaking, in 13 games, he didn't do much statistically. But you keep moving forward. Davin Godshaw was a star at LSU, but has become a stalwart in the NFL. And he started 10 games as a true freshman. He made 42 tackles as a true freshman. That is a massive amount for a defensive lineman. Only 1.5 tackles for loss and no sacks. But, like, that's real production from a young player there. The next year in 2015, and this is going out towards the edge, and I get it, and it's a different deal, but Arden Key came in and was fan-freaking-tastic. 41 tackles, 6.5 TFLs, 5 sacks, started 9 games. Like, Davin Godshaw and Arden Key were big pieces to a defense as true freshmen. Rashard Lawrence was a highly, highly thought of recruit. He was a true freshman in 2016. 6 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 sack. Not a lot from Rashard Lawrence. Apu Ika, 2019. Pretty highly thought of recruit. Went on to do great things at Baylor. Was a big-time player in the Big 12. On that 2019 team, they blew a lot of teams out, so you got some mop-up time. He made 17 tackles, had a tackle and a half for loss, like about a tackle and a half per game for Apu Ika. Jaquelin Roy came in 2020. He didn't play as many games in that year. 18 tackles, had 4 TFLs, 2 sacks, like 2 tackles a game for him, and was in the backfield a little bit. You saw some real flashes late from him. You saw him a lot in that Florida game in the fog. But he did a little bit. Mason Smith, huge recruit. 19 tackles, 5 TFLs, 4 sacks. He actually started 4 games that year. So what I'm getting at here is, and I'll continue to go through, but we actually got one more, Deshaun Womack last year. 13 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but in my head, like, freshman defensive linemen don't really do anything. You can count on them for maybe like a tackle a game, 2 tackles a game, probably a lot of that in mop-up time when you're beating some Sun Belt or SWAC team by 40. They're out there, they get 4 tackles that game, and that's 40% of their production for the year. But you have seen 4 sacks from Mason Smith, 42 tackles from Davin Godshaw, 41 tackles from Arden Key. And I don't lay these stats out there to suggest that you need Dominic McKinley and Gabe Relaford to be stars on this team. What really needs to happen is you need Jacobian Guillory and Jalen Lee and Sean Washington and some of these older guys to Parrish Shand and some of the guys you're going to bring in to be better than they have been in their career. But I'll allot for some belief that these 2 true freshmen, Relaford and McKinley, maybe one of them is Davin Godshaw. And he does make 42 stops. Maybe he can be disruptive like Jaquelin Roy was late in his freshman year and make a couple of big plays. And that's a different mindset than I had when I started this research at 8 o'clock this morning, kind of going through some of this stuff. Most of the guys didn't do a ton. But in my head, just that doesn't happen. And the fact is that it can. You just don't want to rely on it. And that's why they wanted to go in the transfer portal. That's why they wanted to find a starter or 2, a veteran or 2 that could come in and take some off these freshmen's plate. But I will tell you this. Freshmen enter collegiate athletics, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, softball, whatever the case may be, they enter collegiate athletics more prepared today than they ever have. Defensive, offensive linemen in the 80s and early 90s were redshirting, period. You got to get in the weight room. You're skinny. You got to grow up. Now these guys are in strength programs when they're in 7th, 8th grade. These guys enroll into college Christmas as their senior year of high school. These guys are more prepared than they've ever been. So I'll hold out hope that LSU can get quality snaps from young defensive linemen. If that doesn't happen, I won't be stunned. That's not the expectation, but it could be the reality. We'll just have to see. But it sounds like the offseason's going really well for Gabe Relaford, and we know how big a talent he is. We thought that LSU had lost one to Texas A&M there. They fired Jimbo Fisher. All of a sudden, things start to shake up, and LSU ends up with the home state guys. And hopefully those guys can really play, because I think LSU's going to maybe lean on them a little bit more than we like coming up this fall. If you're looking for LSU football content, you can always find it on our LSU YouTube channel, Hunt on LSU. Invite you to subscribe to that channel and get our LSU football content sent right to your homepage each and every day. We're getting close to SEC Media Days, getting closer to fall camp than we were. Kind of a holiday week next week, then all of a sudden Media Days is a week away, and then all of a sudden fall camp's right there around the corner, and we'll be there for any and all of that. So let's take a time out. When we come back, I saw a story written about every NFL team, one breakout player for every team. We'll tell you who they pegged for the Saints and what I think about that coming up next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com. Mitchell Fisher and his local team are absolutely fantastic. I'm going to give you Mitchell's cell phone number. This is not some recorded line. This is not some answer machine. They may get back to you in a week or 10 days. This is the owner of the company's cell phone number, 225-439-7920. 225-439-7920. They can handle all your audio, all your video needs for sure. They can also handle your security, and it's something that I talk about a lot because it's so important. Mitchell came to our house. We told him what we were looking for. He said, all right, let's set up this security system. How many cameras you want? We want one right there. We want one right there. They provided the cameras for us. They mounted them. Okay, we need all these windows monitored. Put sensors on those. Okay, we need the app. We got it. I can activate and deactivate the alarm at my home as I'm sitting here right at this desk remotely. I can also monitor the cameras that I've got from my phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can rewind. I can pause. I can look at the back door. I can look at the front door. And I don't have to worry about these cloud storage fees that a lot of people have to worry about with their security cameras. It's fantastic peace of mind in knowing my property and my family are secure because of the folks over at Audio Video Security Solutions. Check out their Instagram, AVSS_BR, and certainly check them out online at avsla.com. It's Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
There's nothing chill about a hot, sweaty line. Unless you add mountain cold refreshment. Coors Light, choose chill.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. So it's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across.
Join me for a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Preston Guy talking LSU football, baseball, transfer portal news. Does Texas A&M have a baseball coach? Lots to get to on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
So USA Today put out a piece and was talking about a potential breakout player for every NFL team. And John Seigler from Saints Wire was in charge of nominating the Saints breakout star. And his nomination was one that I find interesting because I'm not certain that he hasn't already broken out, but I'll listen to the discussion. His nomination was Rashid Shaheed. He writes, Rashid Shaheed was a big player for the Saints last year, earning Pro Bowl and All-Pro honors for his skills in the return game. He caught 46 passes for 719 yards and 5 touchdowns as a receiver, but he's in line for an even heavier workload now that Clint Kubiak is taking over from Pete Carmichael. Look for Shaheed to draw more targets now that Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, and Shaq Davis have moved on. He's got game-breaking speed and a connection with Derek Carr that Kubiak hopes to exploit. Okay. One, he does acknowledge that Shaheed is a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro in the return game, so that alone gives you name recognition. And I would suggest that 719 yards and 5 touchdowns as a number 2 is a pretty solid year. Now, I don't buy that Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, and Shaq Davis were taking a lot of receptions away from Rashid Shaheed. Those guys were minimal factors on the team last year, were either not healthy, not active, or not around. And Shaheed was right there in the middle of most of the year. You look at what Rashid Shaheed has done in 2 years in New Orleans. In 2 years, he's made 74 catches for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns, and the lion's share of that was last year. I feel like Rashid Shaheed is kind of announced, but we did go through receiving cores and what one service ranked every receiving core in the NFL last week, and the Saints got 29th in that, and it makes some sense because I don't think Chris Olave is quite at the level as some of the true number ones in the league, and maybe Rashid Shaheed is a tick behind the true number twos in the league, but I feel like Rashid Shaheed is really good for what he is, and I just don't know that I expect him to become a 1,400-yard, 9-touchdown guy. I think Rashid Shaheed kind of is what he is. He's a big play threat that's going to come up with 700-800 yards receiving, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and that's what he's already done, in my estimation.
Well, I'm kind of more he can though because Tyreek Hill was the same thing as him. He started off, he got I think he made like all pro like his first year as a returner. So it's possible, but it's also that falls on the quarterback too at the same time, and we're expecting Derek Carr to.
He will be the quarterback.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of like that's kind of the problem.
The one place that I think potentially you could see even more production from Rashid Shaheed is not necessarily because Clint Kubiak is calling the offense, which I do think was going to help.
Yes.
But the new kickoff rules mean that this is going to be a bigger part of the game than it was when everybody was booming it out of the back of the end zone. Now you've got the coverage team up there close. You've got the blockers right there in front of them. And we believe, based on what the rules state, that teams will be far more encouraged to try to return kicks.
Yes.
And so we think that Rashid Shaheed's going to be involved in that. We think Alvin Kamara is going to be involved in that. We think Taysom Hill is going to be involved in that. And I think the creativity, the new rules, and in my guess would be that there's going to be an elevation in return opportunities. That is where I want Rashid Shaheed involved in it. And maybe he breaks out in that way. He runs 2 kickoffs back for touchdowns, which you don't see now.
It's possible. He can.
No doubt.
We've seen it at the Packers game.
Yeah, and so I think if there is a revitalization of the returner in the sport, which to me is an awesome thing, I can absolutely see Rashid Shaheed becoming that dude. And as we look at the Saints receiving core, Jordan,
yes,
how do you feel about how it stacks up? We know Olave's at the top. We know Shaheed is right there. And then you've got a cast of characters with, Bub Means and A.T. Perry, and they brought in some free agents that are on smaller deals. Like, how do you feel about the level of talent at wide receiver?
I feel the talent is there. It's just unproven. So I think we have bodies, especially A.T. Perry. I'm very high on him. Very high on him because what I seen from limited action last year, I'm sold. I'm not sold, but I'm sold he can, he'll be in the mix. So I think 29 was pretty mean. I think the 29 ranking was, I don't know where they got that from, but it's a lot of unproven talent. So yes, it's talented, but unproven a lot.
And I'm there. Like, we've moved on from the Michael Thomas era, and to me, that's a good thing. I don't know how much gas is left in that tank, and I think even though Shaheed was an old rookie at 24, he's now going into his year 26 season. He's still got 3-4 years of elite-level speed left in his wheels, and Olave, I think, is only going to get better after a couple of 1,000-yard seasons. So while it may not be the most elite receiving core in the NFL, I certainly think it's more than serviceable.
Yes.
It's a passing league. You've got real talent. And the Saints have made a habit, and it's one of the better things about their organization, of finding some diamonds in the rough, especially at the skill positions that other people may have missed. And Shaheed embodies that wholly. And so when I say that I don't know that he's a breakout candidate, I don't mean that because I don't believe in Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah.
I love watching him. He's incredible to watch, and he made a couple of huge plays last year to ice games in crucial situations where I was impressed that Pete Carmichael, Dennis Allen, and Derek Carr put the pedal to the metal and went and made the plays. And Shaheed was the guy that did that. And I remember Derek Carr on the sideline. We saw that thing where he just looked at Rashid Shaheed and said, "Run!"
Yeah, run.
Like, that was incredible content on the sidelines, and that's he's got that ability to just go run. I just think he's kind of announced himself already. And you were talking about fantasy football. Maybe some of the folks around the country don't know of Shaheed, but as I look at him, like down here covering the Saints, like I think of him as a really solid player. Do you think he's a guy that could be a more coveted fantasy football player this coming year with a new offense?
He's easily going to be in those, when you look at the list, top sleepers to look out for. His name's going to be in the mix.
Because I find myself a little bit partial to the Jarvis Landry type of receivers in fantasy that I just know are going to make 8 or 9 catches in a game. They're safely going to get me that 9 points. But when Shaheed busts the 65-yarder, that's the 20-point play that may flip your game that week. Yeah. And that is very much in the cards for him. He had a 68-yarder his first year. He had a 58-yarder as his long last year. Like he's the top off the defense guy. And I think he's a very exciting piece to what they're trying to do. And hopefully Clint Kubiak brings a little more creativity and can get him the ball in some interesting spaces. Like he's a guy that I think will benefit from the motion the Saints are going to put in and some of the creativity, because if you lose your place where your eyes are supposed to be on defense and he's the guy that you were supposed to be looking at and you weren't because something happened pre-snap that puts you off where you're supposed to be, lights out. Like that, you're not gonna make up for that.
See, I'm kind of in a tricky position because I'm kind of becoming beggars can't be choosers.
Sure.
Because back in the day, like 2021, 2020, we was out there with LaJordan Humphrey, Marquez Callaway.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even.
That was a tough scene.
Yeah, tough. Traquan Smith. So now that we actually
Moscona's favorite, Traquan.
Yeah, Traquan Smith. I don't even know what Traquan Smith is doing nowadays, but shout out Traquan Smith. But it's like when you go from that to what we have now, it's like I don't want to be too happy, but I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, but at that point, if he was healthy, you had like an all-pro type Michael Thomas, and now that situation's not there. So it is what it is. I think Rashid Shaheed's kind of broken out, but if say he's the breakout guy and maybe he goes for 1,000 yards, that would be considered a breakout year. Maybe he runs 3 kicks back, that would be a breakout as well. He's an exciting player, and I think one of the really positive things about the black and gold as we venture into the offseason. If you're looking for Saints content all year round, look at YouTube, Hunt on Saints. Really appreciate it if you subscribe up to the channel. You get our Saints news right there to your feed daily as we continue to talk a little bit more Saints as things start to ramp up. A little bit of a slow period right now, but we're close to that ramp up where we'll be heading to training camp, and we'll be talking a lot of black and gold in the coming weeks. All right, we got 30 minutes to go in this week. When we come back, we're going to do a little Ask Hunt. You folks in the Bayou Ford chat, we can talk about anything you want. We're wrapping up a week. There's not much baseball news to talk about right now. We've talked a lot of LSU football and Saints, so fire away in the Bayou Ford chat. Give me an Ask Hunt, and we'll do some of that before we get into Take It or Leave It to close things down. You're listening to a Friday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Every shot, every goal, ESPN Bet has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to the championship. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN is the only place to find special offers and promotions from your favorite ESPN shows and personalities throughout the playoffs. New users get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with LeBears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net. Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR. Round 1 of the NBA draft in the books. We'll talk about how the Pelicans fared, preview the rest of the draft, and the latest in college baseball's transfer portal. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Shout out to the folks at Corks. CorksFishandShrimp.com is the menu. Check out the menu. You'll want to get by there real quickly. Their fried shrimp is so good. They're so big. The recipe was born right here in the seafood capital of the world, South Louisiana. Just awesome. If you're craving a po' boy and thinking, where in Baton Rouge can I get a great po' boy? Corks has a great po' boy. Get on by and get that shrimp po' boy today, this weekend. And I always tell you, if you're looking to feed the office, feed a birthday party, got tailgate parties coming up this fall, let Corks know about it. They are happy to help you out with that. They do catering all the time and can certainly help you out with it. It's from the Medinka boys who brought you Kuyons across the river. New food concept here on Government Street. It's called Corks. Get on by and check it out. Check out the menu online, corksfishandshrimp.com. All right, I asked for some questions about E4 chat, and we've gotten a few here. Shane LeBlanc says, ask on who will be the next Texas A&M baseball coach. Sounds like there is some potential momentum towards Tom Walter at Wake Forest. I think a lot of people around here are familiar with Tom Walter from his time at UNO. Had some really good teams. His 2008 team at UNO that came to the regional in Baton Rouge, the final regional at the old box, was really good. They had Johnny Giavitella and Nick Schwanner, and they could really play. And they only had one real pitcher. His last name was Cryer, I recall. And they tried to save him against Southern Miss on Friday when LSU was playing in the 1-4 game, and LSU played Texas Southern and won the game. And they tried to save their ace, and Southern Miss beat them. So they never got back to play LSU. But that team was really, really good, and he's done an awesome job at Wake Forest. They were one of the best teams in the country last year, and had a good team this year. And just they held Chase Burns in their opener in the regional and got beat, and then they couldn't recover and ended up losing to East Carolina and were out of there. But he's done a good job. He doesn't have Texas roots, and they probably have to figure something out on that front. But I think there's a real chance that Tom Walter is the guy there. At Texas A&M, we'll just have to see. Saw over under 5 national championships for Tony V. I will solidly take the under on that. It is so freaking hard to win one of those. And you see, he had the best team I've seen that didn't even get to Omaha a couple of years ago. You run into Paul Skeens. That becomes a bit of a problem last year. One of those guys is up there almost every year. It doesn't have to be as impressive as Skeens by the numbers, but it's really hard to win one. We are beyond spoiled with what LSU has done. There are a lot of Arkansas and Florida States and TCUs and Louisvilles out there that have knocked on that door plenty of times and have not had it answered. North Carolina's been a bunch of times and have not had it answered. So I will solidly take the under on 5 for Tony V. He's got that program on an incredible trajectory, and he's got that administration bought in, that fan base bought in, and I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon, but they're losing a lot off this team, and we'll kind of see where things go from here. I'll take the under on 5 national championships. Nookie says, are you training Myers to be a switch hitter? No, I'm not. Myers he loves to hit baseballs all day long. His swing is atrocious. He puts it on a tee. He literally stands there right-handed, turns his entire back to the tee, holds the bat out, and then just twirls a 360 without even looking at the ball and somehow makes contact. For those that want to see some of that, I tweeted out a video of him doing it like a month ago in his alligator slippers, which he calls his Grinch shoes. It's not a Grinch. It's an alligator. He thinks it's a Grinch. Whatever. But no, he's not being trained to be a switch hitter at the moment.
Okay.
I did think he was left-handed for a long time. Now I know he's right-handed, but I thought there was a long time there where he was doing everything left-handed.
See, me, I kind of wish I was left-handed. Kind of do, man. As I've gotten older, it's like I feel like being right-handed, everybody's right-handed.
Everybody's
right-handed.
right-handed. If you are left-handed, one, it gives you a huge advantage in terms of being a pitcher.
Yes.
If he's got his dad's arm strength, he's not going to be a pitcher because his dad didn't have a very good arm. But it also limits what you can do defensively. Like if you're right-handed, you can play anywhere. If you're left-handed, you've got to play first base to the outfield or pitch. My favorite thing in all of sports is middle infield defense in baseball. I like that more than basketball, football. Like my favorite thing is middle infield defense in baseball. I played shortstop growing up, and if he could do that, that would be a lot of fun to watch. But we'll see. He's just going to do whatever he wants to do.
Okay, I have an Axe Hunt question.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, so why is there no left-handed catchers? I never, as you said, as a left-hander, you can play like first base and
Right. Because if you're a left-handed catcher and they steal third, you'd have to turn your entire body to throw it. So that doesn't. I mean, it would give you theoretically an advantage to throw to first, even though there's generally a hitter there, and the snap throw comes that way. But you couldn't throw to third adequately if you were a left-handed catcher. That's basically the handedness of all these players is based on where you generally throw the ball.
Oh, okay.
If you're a left-handed player at first base, it's easier to throw the ball to second for a double play than if you're right-handed. You got to catch it and turn your feet and throw it. So that's why people positionally
I don't think I've ever seen
handed.
a left-handed catcher, so I just had to ask them.
Softball has some softball catchers are left-handed. You see that sometimes. You don't see that in baseball, but it's at times you will in softball. Let's see. He goes to ask Hunt cilantro. Yeah, nay, sure. I don't use cilantro a ton, but we do taco night, which I think we're having some tacos tonight. I will do some cilantro for sure. Let's see. What do we got? Ask Hunt, how much of a Bush League move was Slosh's move to Texas? I gave my thoughts on that. There were some things he did that I did not agree with at all. He could have met with his team. He did not. He should not have acted the way he did in the press conference. I do not fault him for leaving Texas A&M for Texas, just that part of it. Like, if he wants to work for Chris Del Conte and he thinks Texas is a better job for him and his family, he can do that. It's just more proof that far more often than not, I'm not saying 100% of the time. Listen to Jacob Hester talk. Clearly, this is not 100% of the time. But far more often, especially in this transfer portal era and especially with employees like coaches, the people with your collegiate sports teams and your professional teams don't care about the uniform and the tradition and the history as much as you do the fan. Like a Texas A&M alum and fan would never go to the University of Texas. Like that's just not in their DNA. But these players and coaches don't think that way more often than not. Again, there are guys like Jacob Hester and like Brandon Taylor, who I work with, who would never consider doing anything for the University of Alabama. But that's just not the way it works. When finances are involved and families are involved, and Jim Schlossing will get up there and cry a sob story and say how much he loves the 12th man and how special a place it is and how incredible an atmosphere it is and all that kind of stuff, and then leave for Texas because that's just the nature of sports. The fans make environments great because of what they do, and Texas A&M's baseball program will be great again. It might be next year, and that environment will still be great because those people that love Texas A&M will do that. But I don't fault him for leaving Texas A&M for Texas. I fault him for dressing down that reporter, which was just abhorrent behavior by him. And I fault him for not telling his guys. You can do that. And he tried the next day to say, well, look, in this day and age, I can't talk to them because that's tampering. No, you talk to them when you get home from Omaha. You sit them down. You were all on a team bus and a team plane. You sit down when you get home, get back, and you say, look, guys, I'm moving on. Sorry. And that's not going to go over well, but you can do it. Don't sit up there and give me a sob story about how you can't do that. It's against the rules. You were in a team hotel, on a team flight, and in a team bus.
The head coach, dog. Like, you're the head coach. That has to be a responsibility. But do you think that the transfer portal has desensitized everybody to moving to rivals and whatnot? Like with Trevor Etienne.
Yeah, it's easier. Now you would have to sit out in once upon a time, so no one's going to do that.
Because
I think people still feel the same. They're just able to act on it now.
Yeah, because once I saw Trevor Etienne go from Florida to Georgia, I was like, oh yeah, nobody cares no more.
No, Eli Ricks went to Bama from LSU. I mean, this happens all the time. It just is what it is. Ask Hunt, favorite type of boiled seafood? That's crawfish. I do enjoy boiled shrimp. It's a little more work than boiled crawfish, and that I don't love all the work of peeling a boiled shrimp. I love boiled crawfish, just pop them in and go. Boiled shrimp is tasty, but I'm not going to go to a restaurant and order the boiled shrimp or the barbecue shrimp. It's too much work. I don't want to do all that kind of work. Let's see. Hunt avoiding the Tony V questions. Typical. I didn't see any more Tony V questions. I answered the one Tony V question. Ego says, ask Hunt, what's one LSU sporting event you didn't see that you would like to go back and attend? I don't know what you mean by didn't see, meaning I wasn't around for it or that I wasn't there for it. Like, I wasn't there for the 2022 Bama game. My cousin got married. I was at the reception. I watched every play of the game. I watched in the church. I watched in the car from the church to the reception. I watched in the downstairs in the bar at the reception. And when we scored the 2-point conversion to win, I blew a gasket and went nuts. And my wife said, "I've never seen you do anything like that." I said, "Well, you've never seen us beat Bama." So I saw it. I just wasn't there, and that's certainly way up there. I wasn't in Omaha for Warren Morris's home run. I've said this a lot. If there is one player that I would go back and watch that I didn't get a chance to see, it would be Chris Jackson. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, in college, that style of play, I would just have loved to see that in person. I love shooting threes. I love shooting. I would have loved to see him play at LSU, and that was before my time. I didn't get a chance. So if we're talking about you literally didn't see it, it's between that and probably Billy Cannon's run. Just to see if I could go back to 58, 59 and see what Tiger Stadium looked like then, that would be kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, I know actually what it looked like, but what was the environment like in the 50s? I don't know. I can tell you what the environment was like. None of that. I know what it was like in the early 2000s. I can go back to 90. I remember what it was like in 97. That's as far back as I can go back. My first game was in 94. We beat Ole Miss. I was 6. But I remember the Florida game in 97 vividly, and that's kind of what set the hook for me on LSU. So ask Hunt, favorite sports movie? Haven't thought about that.
That's a good question.
I would probably say...
We're judging you, by the way.
I'm sure you are. Favorite sports movie? The ones that are coming to mind, the first Major League is incredible. Remember the Titans is incredible.
Don't say Rudy. Do not say Rudy.
No, it's not Rudy.
Don't say Rudy.
There's one that I'm thinking of that people don't think of as a sports movie, but I kind of do, and I can't. It's not coming to my brain that I like a lot. For the sake of the discussion and not amble on and avoid and continue to move forward, I think I would go with. Oh, that's what I was thinking of. Caddyshack. Caddyshack is, if you think that's a sports movie because they do play golf at a country club, that movie is a top 5 movie all time for sure, and I would probably go with that. You give me your favorite sports movie.
I just seen Moneyball for the first time,
okay, give me your thoughts.
And I'm not gonna lie, that might be one of my favorite.
Okay.
Just off the fact how Brad Pitt was like, "Who is this kid?" He's like, "You know what? You're working for me now, buddy." I like that whole how we just grabbed him. And he's like, "Yeah, you're part of this team now."
So that movie grinds my gears a little bit.
Okay, I'm here
because I was around for that. I watched that team.
Yeah, I was.
The A's that won 20 in a row, and they're really good. They framed that team. Now, they did do things differently, and they did approach things with different metrics that people weren't using at that time, and that's very fair representation of how they did it. But they make it sound like Scott Hatteberg and Chad Bradford and Jeremy Giambi and David Justice were the reason that the A's were really good and won 20 games in a row.
Yeah, they did.
That team had Mark Mulder, Barry Zito, and Tim Hudson, 3 Cy Young level pitchers they never talked about.
Never talked about him.
Miguel Tejada was an MVP candidate at shortstop. They don't bring him up ever. Like, they had absolute dudes. Eric Chavez was a dog on that team. They don't mention any of the stars. They just talk about the guys they pulled off the scrap heap.
Yeah, you know what?
And that's what the movies, it's like, no, they had absolute stars on cheap contracts that ended up moving on and going elsewhere once they were off those deals. Like, that's why the A's were good.
Okay, I feel played now because I thought they were just a ragtag group that did it all together.
I mean, they had dudes.
I didn't know they
team.
had dudes. I thought it was just a ragtag group. Oh, nah, man. I feel
see,
played now.
that's
I feel
what
duped.
Well, that's the way they'll do it to you. All right, that's it for unless there's another good question we stumble upon. I'm not teaching Myers to pitch left-handed. No. I think that's just about it for Ask Hunt. That went okay for last segment here on a Friday. We'll pause for one more time out. When we come back, we'll play some Take It or Leave It and get on down the road. It's a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. I've told this story, and I know that it resonates with a good number of you. A lot of folks, myself included, back in that time, refinanced to a great mortgage rate just 3-4 years ago. And for that reason, you can't get that again. A lot of people aren't in a hurry to move, but you may want to improve your living conditions without jacking that interest rate around. How about One Bath and Closets? Brand new closet, brand new bathroom, be looking as good as new in that old house. David Duvall and his team are happy to help you with that. They customize bathrooms and closets to your exact specifications and needs. The process starts with a free consultation and a questionnaire. What do you have? What would you like? Here's what we can do. And if you're worried about pricing, they've got financing options as well at One Bath and Closets. I can promise you this about One Bath and Closets. They are not going to take your deal, go ahead and do the project, move on as quickly as possible to the next deal, take your cash and run. They're not going to come back 2 weeks later to fix something that fell apart right after they completed construction. No. They're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. David Duvall and his team take a ton of pride in their work, and that's why they've been doing it for better than 30 years. Check them out online, onebathandclosets.com. Request that free consultation. Tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you $1,000 off of your deal. It's One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, the Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. It's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hannigriff, join us for the Monday edition of Live at Lunch. We're at the Queen Casino in downtown Baton Rouge. Live at Lunch, wrapping up the weekend and getting you ready for the 4th of July holiday. Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
I got to say, after 5 hours straight yesterday, 2 hours is just a light snack here on this Friday. Shout out to the folks over at Cork. Speaking of snacks, get on by and get a late lunch, early dinner. Or check them out this weekend, corksfishandshrimp.com. All right, Jordan Kitchens, let's play Take It or Leave It.
All righty then. Give me 1 second. That promo. All right, take it or leave it. Trump and Biden were talking golf last night. Hunt versus the presidents on the course. Take it or leave it.
I'm taking this. I mean, I obviously can beat Biden. He's 82 and I don't think can play golf.
He was sleeping.
Trump still plays a lot of golf, I'm told. He says his handicap is 2. I might be feeling a little confident because I played really well on Sunday. I would play Donald Trump tomorrow for whatever he wanted to play for, and I don't have very much. And he has a lot more than me. I would play him. I think I would crush Trump in golf tomorrow. I think his handicap's a little bit vanity there. I don't think Biden can play. I was wildly fascinated by them arguing about golf in a presidential election that went from, I was a 6 handicap, no you're not, I've seen you swing, you can't hit it 50 yards, I'll play you, but you can't carry your bag. I was on the couch last night, honestly, tears were coming down my face. I was laughing so hard at these two guys on the other side of 80 talking about golf in the presidential election. It was the only time I've ever felt connected to a political argument in my life.
One of us. Okay, after 25 years, John Anderson will host his final Sports Center tonight. Top 5 Sports Center host of all time. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave that on top 5. John Anderson's awesome, but you got Stuart Scott.
Yes.
You got Dan Patrick. You got
Scott Van Pelt.
Scott Van Pelt for sure.
Chris Berman count?
I don't think of him as Sports Center. I think of him more as prime time and like some play-by-play stuff. I mean, I could go through some, and John Anderson's really, really good. But I can't. I don't think I can put him in the top 5 at this point.
Okay. Notre Dame and Michigan will resume their football rivalry in 2026. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Like, this is where we're headed, where these power teams are going to play each other and they're not going to play these rent-a-win games anymore. I don't know if that's going to be the case in 2026. I'd probably bet against it. That's only 2 years down the road. But I think these good teams playing each other is a good thing, and I think you're going to see more of it with the 12-team playoff, because it used to be where you're just trying to avoid losses. Good wins don't matter as long as you avoid losses. Now I think with the 12-team playoff, good wins are going to be rewarded, and there's more reason to put these games on the schedule. It's more money for the television contracts. It's a chance for exposure for your program. Big wins are attainable, and the loss is not going to cripple you. I think we're going to see more of this. I think it's a really good thing, and I think it's another really good piece to the 12-team playoff. So, yeah, get after it, Notre Dame and Michigan.
All right, last but not least, hopefully it's not a troll. Social media is promoting a new in-flight trend called raw dogging, where you do not entertain yourself with a book or a movie or music. You sit and stare at the chair in front of you for the duration of the flight. Raw dogging. Take it or leave it.
I mean, I got to leave this. This is preposterous behavior.
Happy you left it.
I have done this because growing up, we flew like once a year maybe from Shreveport. And my parents had an American Airlines credit card, and Dallas is the American hub. So every flight we took growing up, you went Shreveport to Dallas, which was 38 minutes, and then you went Dallas to wherever we were going. And that's how we flew everywhere. And that 38-minute flight, like, they don't even bring the drink cart down. So it was not uncommon for me to just sit there and hang out as you took off and then you landed. You were in descent literally 30 minutes later. Like, I didn't need a book or a magazine, or I didn't need a beverage. Like, I could sit there for that. If we're talking a 2.5-hour flight and you just sit there and stare at a chair, that's insane, and I don't think anyone's doing it. I think this is a made-up trend that people are like, oh, well, I'm just gonna sit here and make this up for internet content. No chance. Listen to some music. Read a book.
Yes.
Watch a movie.
No raw dog.
No raw dog. Get a cocktail. All right, that's it for a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you find your sound, you can always find us. Preston Guy talking LSU football. We did a lot of LSU and Saints content today. Have a wonderful weekend. We're back on Monday. Taylor Sharp's going to drive you home on after further review.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's